Was it for you, for example, after the awakening time, when the meat dropped away? Was it suddenly, or was it slow? How was it?
No,
the shift, when it totally was away, when it dropped totally.
Okay, so what I call an awakening was that Tony Parsons was a seeker walking along, and then wasn't there anymore. There was nothing.
Suddenly?
Yeah. Oh yeah, you bet. Because when there's nothing, there's no time. So Tony Parsons was living in a time-orientated world, in the separate me world, thinking that time was real, and it was real, and what it was looking for was real, or to what he thought it. And then there was nothing. And then out of that, you could say out of that, came Tony Parsons again. That was the awakening. And Tony Parsons then tried to remember what that was like, which was absolutely bloody amazing, you know, I mean, God. I could only try and remember something which happened when he wasn't there. Let's be clear about that. There was no one there.
Yeah.
And then after that, Tony Parsons wanted to get back to that because there was nothing else like that. And then, and so he longed to get back to that, and thought in some way or other that he should be a certain way in order to get back to that. He should live in a way, or you know, and tried to do that, and of course naturally failed. Because Tony Parsons was never a very keen seeker in that sort of very disciplined way. Already discipline wasn't really something that Tony Parsons knew much about. So the idea of being a very, you know, didn't really work. So, but there was still a longing. And then years later, some years, my face, because Tony Parsons hadn't come across the open secret. Didn't realise that there was nothing that could be done and no one to do it and nowhere to go. He thought he was a person who could go somewhere. So he was living in the fantasy of seeking. So he was putting all his energy into getting to somewhere which he would never get to. And that's what kept the whole seeking energy going. And then suddenly that whole energy just wasn't there. But that, you could say, event that wasn't an event was nowhere near as dramatic as the first one, because the first one was such an amazing contrast to where he was just before it. Yeah. And it didn't come about by anything that happened before it. It was just so amazing that at 1 minute Tony Parsons was in this sort of world, you know, and then suddenly, wham, way! So that was a huge contrast. And in a way you could say that, this isn't being judgmental, but in a way you could say that light had entered an apparent darkness, or less light, and so thereafter there was more light, but still the residue of me, Tony Parsons, was still there. And then suddenly the whole thing just, that whole structure of Tony Parsons collapsed, and all there was light.
Beautiful. Thank you very much.
It happened. Claire and I, we've done this before. We find that most people seem to go through awakening, although of course they don't. In the end, none of this is real. But most people seem to have an awakening. There's obviously many people in this room, and then they go into that moving. I definitely was me and not me, and it was very easy to see that. I was sitting in my office one night when everybody had gone home, and I was just sitting looking out of the office, and a guy walked past the window, and suddenly, boom! I can't tell you what that was, but and then I was back, and then later on other things happened like that, where there was nothing but that indescribable thing, and then in the end it was just all over.
And for you, Tony, during the awakening, was it known that you weren't there when the
No, I couldn't specifically say that I had recognised by then that there was no me. I read, you know, thereafter I still thought there was a me who could find something. I was in that thing I've described here. I was in the story of me. And then in the end, suddenly it was realised there never was a me. But, you know, it was recognised there never was a me.